In Cooking and Cash, we are taking you from farm to fork with rancher John Coleman Locke and celebrity chef Lamar Moore. Hello to you both. What should we expect, John, with some cattle ranchers being forced to sell cattle due to the drought, especially as it's driving beef prices higher as cattle futures are rallying?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And what's happened is because of the drought, most ranchers didn't have the resources or could not afford to keep their animals, so they had to sell their herds down. The females that were in production got sold down. So supply is at an all-time low right now. Supply and demand's a bit out of whack, so prices are going up, but it's all part of the cycle. We've seen it before, just like the cycles in nature. It ebbs and flows, and we're at a low point right now, but because of the high prices and demand will shift, and so everything will work itself out over time, but the drought has played a huge role in that.
I think you are exactly right. Chef, can you tell us about some budget-friendly cuts of meat?
Sure. One of the things I try to get, customers to do, and that's a great point you brought up, because I work closely with grocery store chains like Kroger and also Mariano's in Chicago. And so what we try to get people to do is to then buy like an entire whole rib. So with that, you can then take them, break them down. You can portion them just like we do in the restaurants. And then that offers us some savings when we do it in the restaurant, the same thing at home. So then that's what we'll talk a little bit more about, some of the recipes that I create, and that I work closely with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association on beefitswhat'sfordinner.com, and being able to show some versatility in a lot of those items.
John, you come from a family of ranchers. What are you doing to care for the land?
Ranching families have been living and breathing sustainability for many generations. So I'm a 6th generation member of the J.D. Hudgens family. We've been here, have a long history of ranching on the Gulf Coast of Texas. We've been in the same location producing Brahman cattle, sending them all over the world. For about 140 years, we've been in here in this location. And one of the things I've learned from that experience is that you must be sustainable. And to do that, you have to take advantage of nature's systems. You have to be connected to nature. And the idea is to leave the business better than you found it, but also to leave the environment better than you found it. So we do certain things to work with nature, to work with those natural cycles that we see.
Is it true that beef cattle help store carbon in the ground?
The number of beef cattle in North America right now is fairly similar to the number of bison that would have been here several hundred years ago. And so we have a managed grazing program where we mimic how the bison used to graze. We take our cattle, we move them frequently to fresh forage. That allows for the forage behind them to recover appropriately. That's good for the plants, obviously, but then in turn, that's good for all biological function in the environment. It's good for the soil. It helps build the soil. That translates into good animal performance and better animal husbandry. Ultimately, that's better for the people that operate the system, the end user, the consumer, that takes advantage of those natural systems, and those cattle actually help to put carbon back in the soil and build soil.
All right, time to shine. What are the tips for grilling a great meal?
On my immediate right, it's just one of my favorites. It's a steak frites. It's a classic ribeye with miso butter on top, and then a little bit of curry aioli. And then there's a New York strip with a salsa poivre. So a poivre is black peppercorn crust into the steak, and then mounted in with a little bit of whiskey, and who doesn't love whiskey, and finish with a little bit of heavy cream. And also, I have a lot of recipes like this, and you can find more recipes on beefitswhat'sfordinner.com.
Thank you for spending some time for us and making us hungry.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.